All right. We're good.
Cool. Yeah, I see it on my end now. Okay, yeah, it's up there. Yep, you're good.
All right, cool. It's time change. It feels like the day went by a lot faster for
Yeah,
some
you
reason.
were just saying that right before we jumped on here. It's like I don't know. I like when it's lighter out later. I feel like people that, especially people that get affected by like that seasonal effectiveness stuff, like it starts to kind of go away when it gets lighter out. I feel like it's just better for you in general. I don't. I feel like there's some statistics on that too, that it's like a healthier thing when it's lighter.
Yeah. I've always preferred staying light later. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
darker. It's darker in the mornings, but it's like who cares?
Why do they didn't? I thought for some reason I always hear different reasons why that started out as a thing. I thought it was originally. I've heard like farmers something that's why it started. Then I also heard it started because of like kids going to school and getting on school buses in the morning. I don't know what the actual reason is.
I don't know. The farmer thing rings a bell. I feel like I've heard that before. Um, I'm not sure. I thought they were getting rid of daylight savings time.
I feel like we talk about that like every year. They're like it's
Yeah.
gonna go away this year, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know why.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Well, anybody just joining, feel free to pop in any questions if you have them. We'll probably dive into some screen share sourcing stuff and, answer the questions and just chat about wholesale and chat about Amazon, you know.
Yeah, I was saying it's one thing. It is light out. Now that we're we're doing this, which is crazy for 7 o'clock. But
Yeah, well, it's starting to get dark.
yeah, yeah. No, by the end of it, it's gonna be. Yeah, I mean, you got your window open there, so it's gonna be probably pitch black. Saying this week has been a theme of, you know, I think in this business, a lot of the times, for me personally, I look at it kind of not like other businesses where I think a lot of other business models, there's like consistent problems. For the most part, I think if you're running a tight ship, there's not really consistent problems you're dealing with on an everyday basis with Amazon. It's more so we're just kind of like looking ahead at how we can forward the business and the next account, and like it's all positive stuff. But a lot of just this week was a lot of that negative energy coming on. So not the most enjoyable, but it kind of makes me grateful that this isn't what this business is like all the time, because there are people that it's like nothing but problems for them.
Within like the
Yeah.
Amazon space, you mean?
I mean, I guess within the Amazon space, if you're doing things, incorrectly, but I just in business in general, like I just hear a lot of business owners talk about how it's just almost to the point where I'm like, do you enjoy what you do? You know?
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, in the Amazon space, like if we're talking about the negative things that you're dealing with, it always goes back to Amazon.
Oh,
And
always.
usually like that they're the source of negativity, just dealing with account health issues, dealing with gating issues, dealing with, all kinds of issues Amazon throws at us. I think Amazon is just over the past month, they've just been, I mean, there's so much compliance going on. Like they're issuing like tons of hazmat issues when nothing is hazmat. Um, Nothing's even like some of this stuff is not even remotely hazmat that they're
Hmm.
saying is now hazmat, and then it gets stuck at an Amazon warehouse.
Yeah.
So it's like these are the things that this is why like we always say like, it's so important to keep that 30 to 45 day supply. If you're doing wholesale, just so you're not overstocking too much inventory. But it's also, I think, the part that people don't talk about. It's important to keep that, uh, that just-in-time inventory, 30 to 45 days, so you're not holding too much and you're not holding too little from a cash flow perspective. But it's also important to keep that from an Amazon perspective when it comes to like compliance stuff.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know, we got 100 units of a product the other day, and as soon as it arrived at the warehouse a day later, Amazon removes the listing.
Yeah, it's risk mitigation.
Yeah.
It really
I mean,
is.
it's just like Amazon is the source of also like they will like those little things add up. They tie up a lot of cash flow. So that's where I think just that's important to keep that shorter window of supply from an Amazon side.
Yeah, I mean, you have leverage when the product is at your warehouse. Ideally, you have the most leverage when you don't even own the product yet because you haven't paid for it. But everything you can do to kind of keep the leverage towards you, I feel like is the right move. And
Yeah.
that's definitely not by holding, a year's worth of supply at an Amazon fulfillment center. So
Yeah. So Greg's asking a question. Why do we all of a sudden have to request approval to sell items we've been selling for years? So annoying.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think the Amazon landscape is always changing with stuff like that. I mean, we saw massive gating. What was it this past summer with arbitrage brands like Nike and Adidas and things like that. So unfortunately, that the reality is like they control that, and I think to combat that, we talk about having valid invoices and having legitimate, ways to get your items ungated. So if you are an arbitrage seller, it might be a little more difficult. You can submit with retail invoices, but it's harder, retail receipts. But yeah, I mean, we don't really deal with that problem in wholesale because of, the types of products that we sell and, also the authorization we have from the brands. But it's definitely a persistent issue. I mean, we've seen it basically every year. I feel like something like that happens.
Yeah, well, Amazon's requesting approval to sell. They're also regating, like you said there, Greg, but they are, asking for crazy amounts of units on the invoices. So that makes it difficult for arbitrage sellers. I think it's a it's a kind of a multi-step answer / approach. Like the best thing you can do is buy directly from the brand, because you have none of these problems. The second best thing you can do is buy from a distributor, but still be authorized by the brand to sell on Amazon so that you don't run into, issues perhaps like this or IP claims or anything like that. And then, if you're doing arbitrage, doing it safely. So analyzing that Keep a chart, making sure there's no sharp drop in sellers, really taking a hard look at how and where you're sourcing your inventory from. But that is why, like, I think for everybody, especially doing arbitrage, the end goal should be wholesale. Arbitrage is more so a stepping stone to learn Amazon logistics in the beginning, learn the basics at a fairly low capital risk. But I think it's a great goal for, a lot of arbitrage sellers to advance into wholesale, to get into a business model that is, far more scalable at a faster rate.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Greg is a Michigan fan, just judging by the profile picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's right. I mean, having it as a stepping stone, super important to learn the platform. It's really effective for that. Kind of a catch-22 though, because the more you get into arbitrage, the deeper you get in, I feel like the harder it is to transition out of it into something like wholesale if you want to. We experienced that, and I'm sure there were arbitrage sellers that were a lot bigger than the numbers that we were doing that probably have even more of a difficult time transitioning out of arbitrage into wholesale.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a good segue, right? So, like, into a little bit of sourcing. So, you know, holistically speaking, we source using a few different ways. We source through storefront stocking. We reverse sourced on Amazon in different categories for years. Storefront stocking has really been like the number one way that we are sourcing products. But now at this stage in the game, we're using SmartScout, and I'll pop it up on my screen here in a moment. But um, what would you say like the biggest advantage? Because it is a paid tool, Smart
Mhm.
Scout. So maybe somebody just jumping into wholesale is just maybe looking to get their feet wet a little bit. What would you say the biggest advantage of using a Smart Scout is versus just going right on Amazon and sourcing?
Yeah, I think that Smart Scout, is it's a database. So you are essentially organizing all the information from something like storefront stocking into one place, and you're able to filter it by criteria. So convenience is definitely the element that we rely on Smart Scout for. I think that you can find more on the basis of storefront stocking is a much wider thing. You're going into another seller's store and you're just looking at their items, but you're not necessarily sourcing it by criteria such as sell price or number of sellers or a monthly or yearly revenue, or a brand score or anything like that. So it's just more of a convenience aspect of it. I don't think you should limit yourself to something like Smart Scout. You should learn how to source in general, whether you don't have any tools or not, through a method like storefront stalking. But yeah, it's definitely just has sped up the process for us tremendously.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you could learn that process of Smart Scout, um, like we were just talking with somebody today on, just getting a real good grasp on using Smart Scout, um, it's really a plug and play type model. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna pop up my screen share here. You able to see my screen?
Yep, you are good.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the brands tab and set a very basic filter that we're filtering out by monthly revenue, and we'll say somewhere in the range of what 220,000 to 200,000, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good range because you're filtering out for the most part those massive, massive brands that you're not going to get in touch with a decision maker. But then you got brands that's some serious money. 100,000 a month in revenue. That's a six-figure account exclusively, like
Yeah.
profit wise.
So when you say right, so like what you just said was get in touch with the decision maker.
Mm.
Like if you're brand new to wholesale, like what does that mean?
Yeah. So when we talk about the size of a brand when you're contacting brand direct, a lot of the times, which obviously it makes sense, people think that it refers to the size of revenue, and we don't really categorize brands as far as their size based on how much revenue they're doing. We categorize them based on what the ability is for me to pick up the phone and get on the phone with someone that is going to be able to make a decision maker in terms of allowing me to sell their product or not. Or, on a further more in-depth thing, the ability to, make the decision to enter into an exclusive agreement or, something of that nature. So just as a real life example, we talk about we can't call Procter and Gamble because they're not going to, not going to get in touch with the CEO. But that's the extreme versus the mom and pop, store. I might get in touch with them very easy. They might be the one that picks up the phone and anywhere in between. So that's kind of what we mean when we say getting in touch with the decision
Yeah.
maker.
So like all these brands right here are no good
Right.
because like you're not going to contact Apple, you're not going to contact Samsung, HP, Sony. Those are massive, massive brands.
Yep.
Um, Not interested in that. So minimum price, I'm just going to go ahead and put 18.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty solid minimum price. It hits your consumer, uh, you know, your consumer products, which are usually priced at 19 and change, right? So it's like hitting the under $20 mark, but at the same time, you're keeping it at enough of a level where you're going to make some margin. And usually we'll source, we're looking for at least a $2 profit per unit once we end up getting that price list after contacting the brand. And then we always want to see, at least two sellers on the listing so that we're not targeting private label products or, the brand is exclusive with one seller. We look to see at least 2 sellers on the listing.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, Amazon in stock rate, we'll usually set a top filter of about 10%, right? Because we want to see, maybe we'll open up opportunity to see if Amazon is on that listing, sharing the buy box, or maybe sporadically they're on the listing. But we don't want to see them on the listing for, any significant period of time.
Mhm. Yeah, most
Um,
definitely.
So at this point, it's pretty basic. Then we'll go ahead and hit apply, and then this is going to filter out a list based on the filtration criteria that we selected here. And you can get more granular with this and select different things within specific categories. You can niche down further and set these filters. And a lot of this is, modify and adjust as necessary. So. Real quick, like brand score. If you had to give like a 1 or 2 line definition of what the brand score is and why it's relevant in the sourcing process, what would you say on that?
Yeah. So a brand score, it's an internal statistic by SmartScout, and it's just taking into consideration different things on the listing, like the pictures, basically how good the listing is in the presentation of the brand as a whole. So how that affects us is if we're contacting brand direct, well, a lot of times the value that we're providing to these brands has to do with their presence on Amazon, which we want to have ammunition to overcome objections that the brand might make, and a lot of that ammunition stems from us saying things about their essentially their brand score. So a account, or I'm sorry, a product with a lower brand score in this case is actually going to be better for us because their presence is worse. So we have more ammunition going into the conversation.
Right. Right. Exactly. So keeping that in mind, right, as we're scrolling through our list, brand score might be something that we are just taking a look at. It's not a like black and white thing. But we will look at brand score. So like, if I were to kind of just scroll through here at a preliminary standpoint, and we won't ever look at books. We're never going to get books wholesale. So like first thing I'm looking at is this brand at a 5.7 brand score, which is, I would say, not so good, under average, and then 200,000 in monthly revenue. So if I click on this listing, oops, I gotta jump back here. If I click on this listing here, it's gonna bring me to Amazon. And we can just take a look at what they have going on. All right, so they have a pretty substantial volume, actually very substantial volume. I think I might have seen this brand before.
Yeah, I've seen them.
So they have, a few sellers selling the product. They have some pretty good images. They have some pretty consistent pricing. This is called A+ brand content down in the product description. So they have some pretty good A+ brand content too. I mean, they seem to pretty much have it all going on,
Yeah, which is kind of another, brings up a point, right? The software is not perfect, right? Like it might be taking into account maybe a different listing that's branded under their name, but that listing doesn't really sell too much and is not optimized at all. And it might be considering that as, and that drags down the brand score. So just doing a holistic evaluation of this yourself and just looking at this and doing exactly what Brad did and going through these different elements is going to show you a lot more than something like a brand score on SmartScout will. So just knowing how to do it, like don't take it for law. Anything you see, just understand the evaluation and that process you just did.
Yeah, and as you get good at it, that process happens in like a split second, right? You're able to look at the listing, see, all right, what's the sell price? And Amazon has this nice, convenient thing that they put here, which really saves us a lot of time, is they tell you basically how many units approximately the product was bought. So you get an immediate gauge on volume right above where the price point is. And then you kind of also look at the images and to see if that listing looks good or does not look good. So those are our three main points of criteria that we're looking at: is what's the selling price, what's the volume, what does the listing look like. So let me know if you see anything here. I'll just, keep scrolling, see if we can pop something up. I'm looking at a 4.8 here, 200K in monthly revenue. Average sellers of 3. So I'll click this. Oh, and one side note here is avoid products that say the country is in China, because those are going to be, Chinese private label products, which we're obviously not interested in getting an account with.
I was going to say that first listing right there, the very first one.
The very first one.
Yeah, I mean, that one's okay too. I was just saying, that given the first picture, I'm just looking at that as, yeah. That's what I figured.
Yeah, so let's see, I'm sure we're both thinking things in our head here. First thing that stands out to me is that it does have a good, strong volume. It's 600 plus bought. And mind you, 600 plus bought at $23 a pop. I mean, it's not going to change your life, but they have a lot of listings. Mm-hmm. So this is an account where you can close with the brand, and you can carry multiple different SKUs, right? So that adds up.
I mean, just that alone, that at that price, this is $170,000 a year revenue listing.
Yeah. So no, it's definitely a good opportunity. And, this is a great example of a product that hits that volume criteria, 600 plus bought. It's got a really poor listing. It's just got one kind of blurry image of their product. I don't even know if that's, I literally don't even know what this product does or is.
It says instruments, but nitrate. Oh, it's for, it's a test strip maybe.
Yeah. So this is like an example of a product that's like a niche product, because there are a lot of people buying it, which means that there's a market demand for it. So this brand is not capitalizing on the potential for market expansion, because what if I have a need for this product, but I don't even know it's out there? So I can't even, this is just so not optimized for me to find the product. So they could be missing out on sales and, the potential to acquire new customers, because they are, their listings are significantly underperforming. They're not running any sort of ads that I'm seeing, unless it's maybe some of their resellers that are running ads. But yeah, just a pretty poor overall Amazon presence, I would have to say.
Yeah, which is, the positive for, you contacting them, obviously. That's a positive, because again, you have more ammunition going into it.
Yeah. So a couple questions here if you want to jump back in.
Yeah, most definitely.
You want to answer those questions there? You got one or two rolling in.
Yeah, definitely. So
rolling.
So we've got, let's see. Just a follow-up comment. Greg was saying Amazon used to ungate with Brand Direct, provided invoices within minutes. Now it's over a week. Yeah, well, unfortunate reality. I actually had a brand today that we work with that just applied for brand registry and said he received an email back saying it would take up to 90 days to process the brand registry, which is probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be a lot quicker than that, but still, the time frame on Amazon is they work on their own clock. So,
yeah, exactly.
We had another comment.
Yeah, he said yes, go blue to your Michigan comment.
Yeah.
So you should literally be selling yourself on why your service, aka value, will benefit the owner and his brand. That's at the end of the day, that's what you're doing. Is you're selling yourself on why, what you have to offer is valuable to them. and is beneficial to their business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. Honestly, that's the cornerstone of what brand direct is, right? And I like the service in quotes because, a lot of times you'll get confused maybe as a service company if you're a brand direct seller that is trying to provide value. They say, how much do you charge, or how do you make any money? And you have to kind of correct them on that. So
Yeah. So, in translating it to this product that we had up here, right? It's like, let's pop my screen up for a second. Got the product up. Can you see this?
yeah.
Yeah. So in translating it to this, right? Like if you were to reach out to this brand, chances are, you're going to, first thing you do is always you take the path of least resistance. So you say you're interested in opening a wholesale account. But then when they tell you, they don't want to work with online sellers or e-commerce or Amazon, what is the first sort of a thing you're replying to something like that? How do you fight through the resistance and the rejection? Because I think that's everyone's biggest challenge is getting through that rejection.
hmm Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just going to reference like today. Brett and I had a coaching call, and we were calling and doing outreach on behalf of the person, and helping them through it. And the brand had been called previously, and it was a lot of rejection. It was just like, it was a lot of rejection in terms of just no opening wholesale accounts, no nothing. And I had gotten on the phone with that brand, and the first thing that I did was, when I faced the same exact rejection, I started asking questions and inquiring as to why, and agreeing with them. We always say that, yeah, totally, I totally understand. That's the first thing. People want to be understood, and then asking questions, calibrated questions, to uncover more pain points, and then be able to provide value as a response to those pain points. So most people stop at the question asking stage. They never get past the rejection. But, we were able to get a lot more information out of this brand because of just simply asking questions.
And what you said in the beginning, I think, is a very important step that a lot of people miss, which is validation.
Mm.
Right? Validating that, yes, they are on, because we actually believe that if a brand is limiting their Amazon sellers, we believe that is the right thing to do. Right. So it's that validation. It's, completely understand that. Makes perfect sense. We do the same thing with our current partners. So now after the validation, you're immediately throwing in a little bit of social proof, because you're mentioning, hey, they also have other partners. Right. I think that people miss that step a lot. It's really about just retraining the way you're thinking to put yourself in the power position, as
Yeah.
opposed to the one that wants something. Traditionally you're reaching out to them to get an account to sell their products on Amazon. Yes, but that's approaching it from an angle of wanting something. How do you approach it from an angle of, well, here's why what I do is beneficial to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's what we were talking about earlier about there's a certain, as a seller, this isn't even any information that you're conveying to the brand, but like as a seller, I mean, we talk about like a paradigm shift, having that shift in your own mind internally of saying, no, I am the one that is looking out and has the best interest in mind for this brand. And I'm going into this conversation with the mental attitude that I am providing value to them, and they're the ones that need me. That's huge when you kind of can realize that as a seller, because it's true. It really is. And once you can realize that, I think that it's going to, make your conversations a lot easier.
Exactly. Yeah, because like we talk about it all the time. In the beginning stages, we were we sold in a different industry every week, right? Meaning we'd reach out to an automotive company, we're an automotive, parts dealer. We reach out to a grocery company, we're a grocery deal. And I think I think we wasted a lot of time doing that, because the minute we started owning like it became our mission to own the fact that we are Amazon sellers and to own the fact that yes, we actually do have value to provide.
Mhm.
That's when the real partnerships began. You know, that's because now like you just sound way more convicting. You now get a partnership, you have more partnerships to capitalize on because you're able to show social proof that you've done it before. But I think that's a challenge for beginners in just starting this is that um, you know, take yourself out of the mindset of an Amazon seller and wanting something and put yourself more so in the position of being a strategic partner that is providing value to another business.
Yeah. And honestly though too, like I don't know about you, but I couldn't be a good automotive store. I couldn't be a good, supplement shop. Like I couldn't do any of that, right? And I'd rather fully commit to doing something that like I can be good at, and that's taking the approach that we take now, which is, the Amazon approach.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think everybody has their own unique way of doing wholesale. So everybody kind of finds their way of doing wholesale. I've heard a lot of guys, partner with brick and mortar stores. It's not for us, like
Mm.
I think that goes against the mission of um owning the fact that you are in Amazon, not just an Amazon seller, you are a strategic e-commerce partner. And when you identify what is your mission and what is your overarching goal as a business and how do you want to portray yourself to the companies that you're reaching out to, it's much easier to have a conversation because you have direction as opposed to just going in a million and one different directions, which is what we did for so long. So whatever it is, own it and be it. But I think the brick and mortar thing is not a bad strategy. But I think there's a more efficient way of perhaps skinning the cat, if you will, because you're kind of dancing around the fact that you're on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like if Amazon is if the goal is to make Amazon the full and this might be, a little controversial for some people, but if the goal is to derive 100% of your revenue from Amazon on the products that you sell, like why is that, like, I guess the brick and mortar store is kind of a foot in the door, but at the same time, I think I'd say just own the fact that
Yeah.
you're selling on
It's
Amazon.
funny though too, because I remember, not so much now because I think the approach is a little different, but I remember brands that, initially it was like, no, we need the brick and mortar, 100% no, we don't want to work with you. And then it's almost like once you pass this point of resistance, they completely forget that they had any of those requirements, and I think it is all about the relationship. And as you develop that enough, everything else starts to go out the window. So focus on the relationship and what you can do to build the relationship, and starting the, relationship with the supplier off on a lie, or, something that's like a half truth, for us has not been the way to build relationships. Like we've done it at the beginning and it's not the most efficient way, nor is it really correct. So, you know,
I think
own
it will it might get you a little bit more faster results short term,
it.
but like the long term play is the strategic partner move.
Right.
That's like how you build brand exclusivity. That's how you truly optimize this business model is being that partner on Amazon, you know, um, and Walmart too. A lot of people are selling on Walmart now, and I'm getting FOMO on it because I haven't sold a thing on Walmart.
Yeah. I know their sales have been up crazy this year, Walmart as a whole.
Yeah. Tim is watch the course video. Appreciate that, man. Glad you found value in it. I'll go ahead and drop it here in the chat
Yeah.
just in case anyone hasn't seen it.
Yeah, drop a link in there for it. Great video. Just, basically 2 hours of free, uh, start to finish, wholesale content from a complete beginner to an expert, everything from, sourcing to exclusivity. And we have a bunch of other videos that are kind of in the pipeline coming out for, mindset stuff and just, shipping products to Amazon, things of that nature. So if you guys are watching on other platforms and you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe to the YouTube because that's where the most value is. And I think you'll find the most value from, the content on YouTube where we like to talk. So we have the ability to do that on YouTube where it's something that's long form and not, a short that's like 6 or 7 seconds. So we're able to really provide the most amount of value there. So if you guys are not subscribed to YouTube, I would definitely advise doing that. But yeah, there's the link down below.
Yeah, the biggest thing on the course video is that it will show you how to get a business EIN if you're a beginner, but more importantly, it's going to give the people what they want to see, which is brand exclusivity. And it's going to walk you through phone calls, scripts, actual real a brand call in there. So it's got a lot of good information. So check it out. John is asking about that Hannah product, which I can pop back up on the screen. How many units would you buy if you are allowed to sell the Hannah Instruments product?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to answer the question, I'm just going to clarify, like, we're always going to place a test order. We still place test orders no matter what, no matter how good it looks, unless it's some crazy anomaly situation where we're getting an exclusive and we have to, but even then, like, we still probably place a test order. So usually our test orders are always 20 to 30 units, somewhere around there. And the reason we do that is because it's enough units to make sure there's no like flukes or anything, or we just happen to get the buy box, and we want to make sure that we're getting a good amount of the buy box for a good amount of time, and we're able to actually sell those units and sell them profitably. So there's always a 20 to 30 unit, in terms of that for a test order. But yeah, if you want to pull the listing back up, I mean, you could take a look at it and see based on how many sales there are, how many competitive sellers, kind of make a determination based on that,
Yeah, so we can just look at it for this one product. I know they have other products too, but like hypothetically, if we were just looking at this one product, and we're saying if we were a reseller on here, right, not exclusively, because if you're exclusive, that's going to totally change the amount that you're ordering. So, I mean, first thing, I would look at is after you place your test order is obviously you place the test order to get real live data in your selling account, and then ideally order according to that. But, factors that we're going to look at are the other sellers on the listing. Which, by the way, this is exactly how you can storefront stock too, is go and find, these other stores, and then source their stores. So it's, again, this never ending rabbit hole, but we'll look at the number of competitive sellers on here. So I'm seeing we got one, because after this guy, it's up to $24.99 at 81% positive. So I would say this guy's competitive. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 other sellers competitive right now.
Yeah, and competitive sellers, we want to talk a little bit about that as far as like FBA versus FBM, maybe what that looks like what defines a competitive seller.
Yeah, so competitive meaning there are most of the case FBA, unless because FBA gets the prime badge, is more likely to get the buy box. But at the same time, if they're FBM and they're priced either lower or maybe they are getting the buy box, I would still consider them a competitive offer. So FBM, fulfilled by merchant, FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. You'll see that by ships from Amazon sold by seller. That means Amazon is fulfilling the product, you're selling it. So that means it's fulfilled out of Amazon. If this said ships from Paws and Gears, sold by Paws and Gears, then it means fulfilled by merchant. They're shipping it out of their facility direct to the customer. So we'll look at price and we'll kind of look at if they're FBA or FBM, and make that determination. Because we have a pretty big jump here from 23 $80 to $24.99. These guys likely are not getting the buy box unless they have a substantially faster shipping time, which I can already see that they don't. They actually have quite a longer shipping time here. So I'm immediately ruling that out and just saying, all right, there's about 4 competitive sellers on here. So theoretically we'll be the 5th competitive seller. So we'll kind of divvy up the total amount of sales into a 5th, right? We'll also look at Keepa and take a brief look at buy box statistics. How accurate have you found this to be? I know we've done a lot of work on this in the past and just kind of trying to overanalyze buy box percentages. But I mean, what do you think, for a beginner to go by this as a gauge?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a rough estimate. I personally like to go on the 30-day actually, because I think that buy box is something that is constantly in motion. So having the most recent data for me is the best. Everything on Amazon, like you could have all the software in the world, and at the end of the day, the most effective thing is seeing the product in your inventory, in your buy box rotation and your orders page, all of that. So we really are not able to tell with 100% certainty, but if it's a split like this, you can safely say that the buy box is rotating, I would say, between sellers. Granted, there is a price difference, which is automatically going to, rotate the buy box for the most part. But yeah, I mean, I take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, Amazon's tag is saying 600 units. Keepa's saying 600 units. I mean, I think it moves probably more than that, and you can run further estimates with AMZ Scout or Jungle Scout and things like that. But the best data is your own. So looking in your selling account, always going a little bit more conservative, I would say, especially when you're not exclusive, because we understand that the buy box can change. But I mean, I think it's pretty much fair to say that we would get a 5th. So if we got a 5th, that's 120 units a month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're looking at a good fraction of the sales. And the buy box we found is just a catch 22 a lot of the times, So it's like you get the buy box on Amazon and you start selling product, and then you send in more inventory, and the more inventory you send in, the more Amazon gives you the buy box kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a dynamic process too. Like your ordering and your reordering when you're restocking products should be based on a couple things. It should be based on how many units you're selling, obviously if it's profitable, based on what you're, holding that 30 to 45-day supply as we recommend. But like it adjusts, right? So if you stop getting the buy box, like Brad said, kind of catch 22, but you stop getting the buy box, you're going to order less inventory to keep that 30 to 45-day supply, So that's going to affect how much you're ordering as well. So you're just evaluating that on whether it's a weekly basis for inventory. We restock every week, different products, and just evaluating it and kind of letting it ebb and flow with how much product you're selling versus how much to order. You always want to stock the demand. You always want to stock the demand, whether that's the demand of the listing if you're exclusive, or it's the demand of the products from your inventory if you are sharing the buy box. But that's the most important thing.
Yep. Quick question on Instagram about using Keep a Product Finder. I think KPF means to find brands. Yeah, we'll run that through every now and then. Our VAs will usually do all of that. So we do use Keep a Product Finder. As we start to approach 8 o'clock here, if you guys have any last minute questions, fire them away in the chat. What Jacob's asking what types of categories we sell. And so, I mean, we're all over the place, right? It's very much so category agnostic.
Yeah. And if you're a newer seller, we also recommend that you are category agnostic because you're not limiting your opportunity at the beginning.
Right. I mean, there's categories that we prefer, like grocery is just low or minimal to no returns,
Right.
replenishable or consumable rather, so you're getting that subscribe and save a lot of the time. People just come back and reorder. Those consumer products are great. Might not sell for as high of a price as some products in different niche categories, but still great products to sell. And then we're going to avoid like apparel and shoes and, like electronics, things with like super high return rates, is definitely something that we try to avoid.
Do you ever approach private label companies which seem to be not doing so well, running out of stock, etc., with the strategic partner approach to stay in stock, add PPC value, etc.? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is an interesting question. The follow-up on that was, but still have high demand. Sure. I think it's a good question. What actually piqued my interest is what you said about stock outs, because I feel like that's like a very easy thing to read as like a KPI. If you're looking at a PL listing and you see they are just consistently stocking out, that might be a value, an area that you can add value in. We're an inventory based company, really. I mean, we make little to no money on services, so we would have to be carrying the product. We're experimenting with different structures too, but like the bulk of it, of what we're doing is based on the products that we sell. So we're looking for brand exclusivity. So it would just have to be a partnership that makes sense for everybody. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting approach. We haven't really experimented sourcing too much private label.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I can say on this, because we've had it happen with brands where the brand sells directly and then, we've taken over exclusively for the brand. And the pain of dealing with the logistics of Amazon has to outweigh the benefit of them selling on the platform. And I think that also goes for private label, because if a private label brand is still making money, but they just really don't care. First of all, I think private label, you would obviously, it's a little bit more in depth in terms of like their knowledge and understanding of the Amazon platform if they have a private label brand to begin with. But yeah, I mean, I think just in general, the pain of dealing with Amazon has to outweigh their benefit and desire to sell on the platform in order for you to take over, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to where their brand originated for, like
Mm.
where it originated. Because if they started and they birthed their brand on Amazon, you got to figure they're already going to be good on Amazon. But if they birthed their brand like elsewhere and Amazon was like a secondary or even tertiary platform for them, then they might not be as well in tune. You also got to consider their outside distribution structure as well. Like, do they sell to distributors and then maybe they're getting the bulk of the revenue through there and they're not totally in tune with the D2C market? So all different things to consider, but I definitely think it's an intriguing question that, I would certainly give some thought.
Yeah.
Um, so coming up here on 8 o'clock, appreciate all the questions, guys. And, we go live at 7 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. So, hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'm just reading that last question there. Yep. And like I said, pitch black out now. So I think that means it's time for us to be done.
Thanks, Tim. We'll see you. Any last minute words?
It's about it. I think we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you tuning in, asking all the questions.
All
So
right, thanks, guys. Peace out.
yeah.